Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, How I Shut Down My Karen Cousin's Business. After that, Am I the jerk for banning my entitled stepson from returning home? And after that, Happy 4th of July to you too, you selfish jerk. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets her business shut down. My business will never go under. How could anyone live without the essential oils I sell? So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. How I Shut Down My Karen Cousin's Business. This happened in 2019, but it recently came up. I, 21 female, live in Canada, and I was planning a trip to my native country in 2019. My cousin, 23 at the time, asked if I could bring some items back. She explained that her father's side of the family, unknown to me, was having a wedding and that buying cultural clothes in our native country is much cheaper than buying it here in Canada. She asked for 6 dresses and agreed to pay me for the items plus a little extra for my troubles. I agreed, mostly on the basis that it's for family. It was a pain. I had to compromise on my own clothing, shopping, etc. in order to make space for her stuff. I made it back to Canada, and to her credit, she paid me the agreed amount. Now, here's the kicker. I was scrolling through Instagram a few days later and saw a post from her business page. She sells cerise at a slight discount relative to those sold in Canadian stores. Sure enough, the next few images were the 6 dresses that I had hauled over from 14,000 kilometers away. She called it the wedding collection and marked everything up to the point where selling just 3 dresses would cover the full cost of everything I got plus the inconvenience amount she provided. I saw red. She took advantage of my kindness, and even if the wedding was real, she obviously didn't use any of this stuff, and it was clear that it was premeditated. This is where I may have been the jerk. In my anger, I immediately commented on her Instagram post, telling the truth about how she had lied to me as I had brought all of this back for her, and that I could prove it. Plenty of people DM'd me, and I provided. Within minutes, she called me and gave me an earful about how I just did over her entire family because they were depending on this income. She's got 2 adult brothers, late 20s, and her parents, early 50s. In my opinion, someone can work. I told her that I would have still helped her if she was honest with me about the business, but that lying to me and adding me to her supply chain is really crappy. The conversation ended, and so did our ties. Ever since then, her business has seen a considerable decrease in public interaction, and some still leave comments about the crap she pulled. People have thanked me for speaking up, as she had done the same to them, but they stayed quiet to preserve ties. Others have called me a jerk for destroying the business of a relative. In my opinion, the business was destroyed the moment she started slithering, and it was only a matter of time before someone spoke up. I do feel bad if I genuinely did over the rest of her family, which is why I'm wondering if I should have just shut up. So Reddit, was I the jerk for speaking the truth? Edit. Wow, this is really blowing up, and I understand that there are mixed feelings about it. Don't worry, I recognize that I may have overshot my response to the situation. I'll explain my judgment to bring it up publicly, and hopefully that helps everyone make their decisions. I can definitely see why I was rash for bringing it up publicly. I do still think that, even though it was a jerk move on my part, dealing with it privately wouldn't have gone anywhere. If I had brought it up to her first, as from her natural character, there's a big chance she could have blocked me off of the only social media that her business is on, so I couldn't have spread the message to the poor souls buying these clothes. I feel like I got very lucky that she messed up and posted it to the page that I was following. If I had brought it up to her privately, she would have realized her mistake and been more cunning the way that she went about this in the future, like making sure she blocks the transporter from the page so they have no idea. I feel like I took this one mess up and didn't let go of the chance. Also, I think the whole she would have used it as a lesson learned thing would have only really applied if she was unknowingly doing something wrong and was willing to take criticism or learn from a situation. However, seeing that she has repeatedly lied to people, and she was 23 years old at the time as well, it was clear that she was doing this with malicious intent. As in, she knew she was lying. She knew that it was wrong and still went with it. That didn't sit right with me. Edit 2. A lot of people are asking why I didn't just say no. I've detailed this a bit more in the comments, but essentially there was a massive family expectation for me to help her out because of this supposed wedding. There was a lot of pressure and guilt tripping that resulted every time I tried to argue that I needed space in my luggage. Stuff like, "Oh, you can't do this for family because you need to shop so much, right? If you can't even do this for your cousin, imagine what happens when your parents get old. Guess they'll end up in a senior home because you can't make space for them either." It gets brutal, and this kind of stuff is deeply rooted in my culture. I know that there will be some people who don't understand this, and that's fine. Just hold the assumption that I had no other choice but to agree to help her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know. Definitely the cousin. She should have been honest about this from the get-go, not lie and manipulate the way she did. Am I the jerk for banning my entitled stepson from returning home? My biological daughter, who's 12, Susan, likes to collect and read old kids' books. She's become an incredible reader. She had problems with reading and learning before, and we were advised to encourage her to read, and ever since she started reading, which she does regularly, her skills have improved. She also reads to her 2-year-old sister every night. I have a stepson who's 16, Levi, who can be a hothead sometimes. We don't have a son-dad relationship, but I respect him and he respects me, though he can act quite mean and selfish towards me and his sisters. He'd throw away stuff that belongs to us over small arguments and teases Susan for spending a lot of time reading, calling her grandma. My wife and I discussed his behavior and had conversations and agreed on punishments, but Levi would go to his dad's place whenever he causes trouble, then have his dad yell at me for wanting to discuss a suitable punishment. Then Levi comes home days later expecting me to let go of what he did every time. It's frustrating. I got a call at work from Susan saying Levi took her entire book collection and threw it all into the pool after she refused to lend him and his friends her camera for his trip. My wife helped get them out, but they were wet and some were torn. It was horrific because some of those books are hard to get and meant a lot to Susan as a part of her life. I was so mad at Levi, I came home and had a conversation with my wife to decide on a punishment, but he had already packed a small bag and went to his dad's. I asked my wife how could she let him basically run after doing this, and she said he called his dad and he came to pick him up after Susan said that I was coming home to deal with the problem. I went to his dad's house and he refused to let me see him. I told him how Levi was hiding from the consequences, and his dad tried to justify why Levi was acting out by blaming me for how me and Susan treat him. He even said he'd get the authorities involved if I ever tried to punish him because I'm not his dad and I have no right. Adding what Levi did was a reaction to my daughter being mean to him. He told me to leave because Levi won't come back home until I promise not to do anything about what he did and put it in writing. I told him Levi should stay there with him then. He's not to come back until he gets a proper punishment. His dad argued it's his mom's house too and called my wife, and she asked me to let this go and we'll figure out some way to resolve it. But I don't think it's fair for Susan to have her books ruined and Levi getting away with it. They're asking me to let it go, but this will only encourage Levi to do worse if I don't deal with it now. It's been 2 weeks, and my in-laws say I was out of line for banning Levi from coming home and are telling me to step back, but I refused. Edit. Levi's dad thinks that because I'm not his biological dad, then I have no right to punish him for whatever he does in the house. In the past, his dad caused issues when I used to take Levi's electronics that his dad bought as punishment. Then I got talked out of punishing him every time he did something unacceptable, whether to me or his sisters. I've arranged for family therapy, but Levi's dad refuses to let him go. Edit. I'd like to mention that my in-laws said that Levi is willing to apologize to Susan, and so this should be enough to get over this. But I kept saying no, and for that, I'm being considered at fault. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you just move on and let Levi get away with it, or not? Please let us know. Mom and the ex are enabling this horrible behavior. If Mom won't agree to start working with OP on situations like this, it could be a hill worth dying on. Happy 4th of July to you too, you selfish jerk. My husband's entitled mom is absolutely notorious for doing these things in this order. 1. Constantly criticize and guilt trip us about not visiting enough. 2. Ask us to appear at her house on a certain day. 3. We call and text that day before leaving our house to confirm arrangements. She says yes. 4. We drive the hour to her house. 5. We arrive and she's not there. Yes, at the appointed time. 6. We are expected to wait for her to get home. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes she never comes back at all. 7. During this interlude in passive-aggressive heck, sometimes she responds to us on her cell phone. Often she doesn't, and my husband wastes half his day off waiting in her empty house. 8. Sometimes she eventually comes back. Sometimes she does not. After experiencing this a few times with my husband, I now give her 20 minutes, then we leave. 9. Several hours later, when she finally arrives home and does not see us patiently waiting, she starts texting angrily about, "Why weren't you there?" and "Why didn't you call me?" We were there. We did call her. 10. She sends passive-aggressive texts for the next 4 to 10 days, absolutely infuriated that we did not spend all day waiting for her. There is a variation of this where she says she's coming to my house. It's usually her idea because, duh, I know she's about as reliable as a dead cat. In that version, we clear one of husband's days off for her. We miss out on other things we'd rather do. We cook food to feed her dinner. We clean the house and stress all day instead of relaxing. And then she either doesn't show up at all, cancels just before she was supposed to arrive, or sends a string of texts and calls, lots of texts and calls, about how her life is hard and she's busy doing things. And okay, she guesses she's not coming. She does this on my son's and husband's birthdays. She does it during the holidays. She does it on summer weekends where we all could have been doing something else. So, okay, I guess I'm partly to blame for what happened yesterday, July 4th, because I know what she's like, and in all the busy of the weekend of the 4th, we made it to fireworks, a barbecue, and 2 different birthday parties in 2 days. I forgot to have a backup plan in case Grandma bailed on our plans. More fool me. To fit her into our crammed weekend, we cut out some much-needed quiet family time / naps at our house before we went to the fireworks at 10. We had been planning this with her all week. Husband texted to confirm before leaving our house, an hour away. She said yes. We arrived, and guess what? The jerk isn't there. She decided to go out on her boat instead. It was 90+ degrees. It's 6 p.m. and we've got 4 hours to spend before fireworks. We can't wait in the heat, and I'm not going to wait all day in her house with my son, who Grandma's doing this to yet again, and who didn't get us a 4th at all last year because of lockdown. We don't have enough gas or gas money to drive home, sleep till fireworks time, and drive back. So I took him swimming. I had to buy shorts for both of us to swim in because we had on nice new clothes for Grandma's dinner she was supposed to be having for us. Thank God Walmart is cheap. It was too hot to not swim. So we're splashing around and actually having a great time. And about 3 hours later, the frantic texts and calls began. She's furious because, "Why didn't you call me?" and "Why didn't you answer my text?" and "Are you coming over to eat or not?" I made husband turn his phone off, and we ate McDonald's for dinner and went to a completely different spot to watch fireworks than we usually do. It was on the river, and the sunset over the water was absolutely beautiful, and we had tons of fun giving each other silly internet quizzes. Great memories for my son, and that's what really matters, not his super selfish grandma. Edit. Wow, thanks so much for all of the replies and support. Feeling loads better. Have you ever known someone like this that you just could never count on? If so, do you still keep in touch with them? Please let us know. That's how you ought to be honest, Reddit boy. You haven't taken me on a date in years. Angry Boomer argues with me while stealing the items I was in the middle of paying for. This happened about 1.5 years ago now, just before lockdown. I used to work in a restaurant. We had a deal with a local Aldi, supermarket chain big in Europe that had moved to Australia in recent decades, where they'd ship in ingredients for us in bulk with a slight discount, and we'd order every 2 weeks and pay 50% in advance and 50% on pickup. Since they worked on a quota system, they loved us for it. On this particular day, I was going to make our fortnightly pickup. For some context, their uniforms in Aldi are a bright blue shirt with like charcoal trousers, shorts, skirts, etc. At the restaurant I worked at, there wasn't a uniform for both kitchen staff, only some guidelines, so I was wearing a bright blue t-shirt with some patterns on it. It wasn't collared like the uniform, but still blue. So there I was chatting to the cashier, who by this point I was quite familiar with. She was pretty cute, and at the time I was working up the courage to ask her out. So yeah, long chat while she put through our massive order. Stacks of boxes of buttermilk, bags of flour, drinks, oil, etc. While we were chatting, I didn't notice the 50-year-old guy at the next checkout queue grabbing some of the boxes of Coke cans. I only noticed when the cashier pointed it out to me. So obviously I walked over and confronted him. I had already worked 8 hours with another 6 ahead of me, so I wasn't about to take any of this BS. I asked him, "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing with those? They're paid for." To which he replied,
Bus off, kid. Paid for by who? Quit flirting with your girlfriend and get back to work.
Now I was raised to respect my elders and all of that, but this dude was the epitome of everything wrong with that generation. So I started going off on him that I didn't work here, and if I did, I wouldn't let him in the store. Don't even remember what I said from then on since we were both yelling. Do know it was pretty colorful though. Eventually, the manager of the branch comes to help me load up so he can sort out the invoice was called for and had to drag us away from each other so we didn't end up in a fight. Thanks to the cashiers, it all got resolved while I went and cooled off. By the time I got back in a few minutes after, it was sorted out and I could finish paying and load up. Pretty sure my old work order is still there to this day. Never did get that cute cashier's number because of lockdown. Edit to add a bit of response. I'm absolutely not proud of this incident. It was a key turning point in getting my life turned around. High-stress working environments under inhumane conditions are horrible. I hope that anyone who's at that place or knows someone at that place who puts themselves under those conditions can hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel and get out of there. It took me moving back to the country I was born in to get back to where I wanted to be as a person. Also, I'd like to add, I'm glad I never got her number. She didn't need the stress in her life knowing me at that time would have caused. Also, being in a romantic relationship with someone working 70 hours a week every week for the indefinite future isn't conducive to healthy quality time together. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law and mother I'm not here to babysit my husband? I, 30 female, have been married to my husband for a year. We are expecting our first baby, and it's a really tricky pregnancy for me. My husband grew up as a mama's boy, but throughout our relationship, that dynamic changed and he became more independent. His mother always cooked for him, cleaned for him. Even when he was an adult, he was never required or taught how to do house chores. He learned all that through me. I'm working a really hard job since I was 25. I work at a warehouse and I always work overtime because my boss is horrible, but that's another story. My husband is working from home even before the lockdown. Now, my mother-in-law and my mom call me a bad wife for not caring for my husband properly. They claim it's my job to do the cooking and cleaning. My mom justifies my mother-in-law intervening in our household matters. She says I'm not being proper. My husband complained to my mom today that I'm too lazy, that I haven't cooked a proper meal in a week, and I only cook easy, quick meals. I'm working a 12-hour job while pregnant, and he's working from home. My job is also a 2-hour drive from the house. I'm away 14 hours a day, overworking myself, while he does nothing to help around the house. And the few times he does help, he rubs it in my face while calling me lazy and complaining to my mom and his mom. While I was at work today, my mother-in-law called me and complained about how her son had lost weight since he married me, and how I'm not feeding him, and she had never let him marry me if she knew how crappy I am as his wife. I told her her son is a grown man who's fully capable of taking care of himself. Also told her to never bother me again while I'm at work, and I hung up. My mom called me a few minutes later to also complain, and I told her I'm not my husband's babysitter. I'm his wife, and if she and mother-in-law want to act like babysitters to him, then be my guest. I was having a chat with my friend from work about that, and she told me I'm the jerk because that's what I signed up for when I married him, and I should take responsibility when I'm not doing my duties the right way. She said I let things I learned online get in my mind, and I've forgotten my responsibilities, and I'm trying to rebel against my husband while also offending my mother-in-law and my mom. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Thanks for your feedback. I want to update and also comment on some things I'm seeing. First of all, I really don't appreciate the victim blaming in some comments. People blaming me for getting in a bad relationship and having a baby. You know it's not always that simple and easy. My husband worked on himself for the better when we started dating years ago. While we were dating and while we were engaged and lived together, he was always helping out. He grew up with his mama's boy mindset, but once we became more committed, he started changing his mindset and behavior and treated me as an equal. Even when his mom tried to intervene certain times, he'd put her in her place and defend me. His behavior started shifting back slowly after we got married. At first, it was more subtle, but the signs were there, though not as obvious. As time passed, I also found out that I'm pregnant and it was getting worse and worse. The cherry on top was now that he's been also complaining to my mom about how lazy I am. For many years, we were equal and he never displayed that mindset since he bettered himself. It only happened after the marriage. Secondly, I talked to my sister about it. My twin sister lives in an entirely different continent and had no idea of these things. She was furious when I told her and called our mom to defend me. Then my mom called and said I'm trying to cause a rift between her and my sister because I refuse to take responsibility and accept that I messed up. She said that if I keep messing up, she won't support me and I'll end up alone, so I better watch my steps. I don't know how to feel about this and how to react, what I should do. I'm completely alone. The only person who could possibly support me is across the globe. Edit 2. To everyone asking where I'm from, if I'm non-Western, I'm a white American from Illinois. My mother-in-law is a lawyer and my mom is a school teacher. Well, who do you agree with? OP or everyone else in the story? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy tried to pull this crap on me, I'd pop his head like a balloon.
Angry man freaks out when he has to pay a ticket that I had nothing to do with. This happened a few weeks ago, but I just found this subreddit and I thought this story worked perfectly for here. I work as a tourism counselor in a small town in Canada situated near a national park. We share a building with Parks Canada so that they can provide information about the park and we can give information about the town. National Parks has an admission fee, and if you don't pay the admission fee, you receive a reminder that you need to pay. If you do not pay, then the reminder turns into a ticket, gets sent to a collection agency, and you have to pay a larger fine. I'm able to deal with these tickets at my desk, in case of it getting too busy at the park's desk. This does not mean I have anything to do with these tickets. Let the story begin. It's 5 minutes before closing and I'm getting ready to shut down when a clearly distraught man comes storming up to the door holding a ticket in his hand. He gets to the door and realizes he does not have a mask, still required in Canada at the time. He goes back to his truck to get a mask and doesn't even put it on when he enters. My desk and the Parks Canada desk are situated across the room from each other, and Parks Canada's desk is closer to the door, so typically people will go to the Parks desk first. But of course, since I'm writing about this now, this gentleman came storming right up to my desk, yelling about his ticket. When he gets to the desk, he throws his ticket at my face, which ends up being a critical hit and leaves me at low HP. He then proceeds to let me know that he was going to throw the ticket out, but his girlfriend had convinced him to pay the fee. Keep in mind, this fee is only $10. I ask him the required questions so I can charge him the correct amount, and he starts yelling, saying, "I've been coming to this park for 15 years, and I've never had to pay an admission fee. This is BS. He asks how long we've been charging people to international parks, and I lean over so I can see the person at the park's desk who should be dealing with this lunatic and ask her how long. 1984, she says. This nice gentleman decides that me and this lady working at the park's desk are lying about this, and he gets fed up. After yelling at me a little while longer about how stupid I am and how I shouldn't be working this job, he throws a $10 bill in my face, draining the last bit of HP I had, and storms off. The woman working at the park's desk proceeded to thank me profusely for dealing with him, as she should have been the one dealing with him. The free water cup that ended up not being free. A drive-thru tale. I just went and picked up some food from a chain I worked at briefly years ago, which reminded me of this story. I hated that job, but I still love their food. I was working the drive-thru when a regular customer drove up. He was a catty and rude fellow who worked at the mall next door, so I had dealt with him enough to know that he was a jerk and to not ever bother trying to give excellent customer service, because he was just not a friendly person. He gave his order, which included a cup of water. No problem, sure thing. We prepared his food, bagged it, and I started to pour his water. He got to the window and started fussing at me immediately because he needs a bigger water than that. That cup is tiny and useless, and I have to have a bigger cup. Let's talk about our cups for a moment. I assume you all know that the fountain machine is extremely inexpensive to run and is highly profitable. It costs about 4 to 7 cents to fill a cup. Drinks cost money because the cup itself can cost more than the beverage itself. Our soda cups came in small, medium, and large. Then we had a free water cup, which held about 1 cup, 230 milliliters. It's small, I won't lie, but it was free, and I get wanting to minimize food costs from a business perspective. I start explaining to him that the free water cups are this size, but he interrupts me before I can tell him that I can go ahead and give him water in one of the bigger cups, which I did on a fairly regular basis, and starts yelling at me about how stupid that is and how he will pay for a bigger cup. Malicious compliance time. But first, let's talk again about our cups. The small was big, medium was bigger, the large was a swimming pool. Seriously, it's a giant cup. It cost about $2.50. He didn't say what size he wanted, only that he'd pay for a bigger cup. I grabbed the large cup, added the cost to his total, and stared at him while the water laboriously trickled out of the spigot into his cup. The machine had very low water pressure without the carbonation, so it took a while to fill up. It was nearly full when I made a mistake. I swear I did not mean to do this, but I accidentally got the cup too close to the spigot next to the waters, and a giant splash of dark-colored cola ended up in that very nearly full water. I looked at him, said, "Oops," poured it out, and started over. The time dragged. Oh, how he glared at me. I had to try so hard not to laugh or look smug. It was awfully difficult. He was so rude and impatient, and if he hadn't have been, I would have just given him the darn water in a bigger cup, and all that time wouldn't have been wasted. Whatever, he deserved it. Have a glorious day, Reddit. Cheers. This has never happened to me before. This past Friday, 2 days ago, we had a wedding at 4 p.m. I get in at 3 p.m. and it's very quiet. The couple is local, so only a handful of rooms are reserved for it. A man comes up to the desk. Me. "Hi, can I help you?" Man. "Yes, I'd like to book a meeting room." My event sales manager was there that day, but was busy with the wedding, and this is right before, or just as it's starting, so she's occupied. I'm not gonna bother any manager for something that's not urgent when I know they're busy. I grab her business card and hand it to him. Me. "Okay, the manager in charge of that is not available at the moment, so I will give you her card and you can give her a call or email to discuss the meeting rooms." He just kinda looks at me. Man. "Oh well, I wanted to have a tour of the meeting space." Me. "Okay, we do have a wedding right now, so banquet space is not available at the moment." Man. "I just want to see the boardroom. You can't do that?" Dude, what the heck? It's a Friday night. Me. "The ballroom is being used for the wedding, and the meeting room is usually used by the wedding party to get ready. Because of that, we cannot do a tour at the moment." "You can't just let me look in?" "No, it's currently being used, and we cannot disturb the event. I apologize." He shakes his head and starts to walk away. He then turns around. Man. "You know, I'm a band member. I stay in hotels 80 to 90 days of the year, and this has never happened to me." Me. "I'm sorry about that. However, I do not have access to the rooms if they are locked, and since there is a wedding, as outsiders, we don't want to invade their privacy." He just shakes his head again and walks away. As front desk, I'm not even in charge of the banquet center and giving tours because I'm not sales. I'm also alone and not going to leave the desk for a tour anyway. And if there is a wedding, I'm not about to disrupt it. These people paid a lot of money, and I'm not about to potentially invade anyone's privacy or ruin a moment. Your situation isn't urgent, and I'm not the one you need to talk to. Like I said, the manager's busy, and I'm not going to bother her for something not urgent. Come during normal business hours if you want a tour. A Friday night with an event is not it. My coworker and housekeeping manager agreed with me. I think he was just being arrogant. Am I the jerk for wearing earplugs and headphones to sleep and study since my parents had a baby? I am a 21-year-old college student living at home again because my college campus is shut down. I have a 17-year-old brother, a 15-year-old sister, and a 13-year-old brother. So yeah, I was already sick of babies and babysitting and all that comes with that. Then this year, my parents got pregnant and had another baby. She's 3 months old now, and I'd been going a little crazy in the house already because it's noisy being around all my younger siblings. Now with a crying baby too, sleep and school have been difficult. I've started wearing foam earplugs to bed, the kind that construction workers wear to protect their hearing. Then I bought a pair of noise-canceling headphones for myself and started wearing them over the top of the foam earplugs to bed, with a couple pillows piled over my ears, and I've been sleeping a lot better. I've also started wearing the earplugs/headphone combination when I'm in classes or studying. I can hear the teachers through the headphones despite the earplugs, and I am not distracted at all. I've also been wearing them when I'm doing things like reading books or video calling my friends. And my parents and siblings have started to get upset with me, saying that I've been completely closed off from the family. I can't hear anything, like my parents calling my name. They don't like how I can't hear the baby to help out sometimes. My parents like all the siblings to help each other out and help with the baby when we can, and say it's dangerous for me to be blocking out her crying because what if I'm the only one who could have caught something bad happening if only I was aware of my surroundings. They've also been upset with me because I've locked my door when I sleep or study, and a few times they've wanted something from me and couldn't get my attention. Like one time, some of their family friends came over, and they wanted all of the family to come have brunch with this family. which I didn't really feel comfortable with visits anyway, but they were embarrassed that they couldn't wake me. Am I the jerk for wearing earplugs and noise-canceling headphones after my parents had a surprise baby when I'm in college but studying from home? Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or their parents? Please let us know. Don't stop now. Watch this video next. You won't believe what happens.
And support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video.